So session 3 start. So this is on Japanese side. And then the presentation is by Dr. Hashimoto. So you have 20 minutes.
My name is Yuki Hashimoto from RIETI. Today, I would like to talk about the employment of foreign workers in Japanese labor market, what we found through the analysis of the data. So with regard to the increase in foreign workers by visa status, you can see the status between 2008 through to 2025. So 0.5 million was 2008, and 2012 it exceeded 1 million. 2025, the record high 2.57 million. Especially, the increase was quite prominent in specified skilled workers. 2020 through to 2025, it increased by 40 times, and TIT over the past decade times 3, and also engineer humanities international services times 4, and permanent resident also increased. So in Japan, foreign workers are increasing, and one of the characteristics is that they are concentrated in SMEs. The employers who employ foreign workers tend to have a business below 100 employees. That accounts for about 80%, especially the specified skilled workers and also TIT are concentrated in SMEs. So specified skilled workers and TITs are employed by businesses, but there are a lot of issues which have been identified, such as the working place condition as well as low wages. So through introduction, sharing the best practices, the government is trying to improve the situation around TIT and SSW. For example, that they would have the posters and signs in their mother tongue, and or some more incentives. And there are very desirable practices. However, those best practices are good. However, due to time and cost constraints, many of SMEs struggle to implement those best practices at the same time. So this shows the distribution of firms who accept TITs, the technical interns. And then horizontally, you can see the quality of the firms. And towards the right, you can see these are the firms with many best practices and features. Those good firms are very limited. As you can see, they are on the right-hand side of the graph. Institutional issues have been identified, such as the labor law violations. According to the survey by the government, it accounts for 7% of those SMEs, but they are concentrated in the left-hand side of the graph. And many of the SMEs have good practices, if not all the good practices, but still struggle to implement the ideal workplace. So it is not to discuss who is right and wrong. However, through various projects, I learned that the foreign workers in Japan have certain characteristics and distribution. So I have been looking at the overall pictures. I would like to share with you the findings. The first, the project is was supported by Toyota Foundation. One is about the analysis of the foreign workers' wages, and the second project survey is the survey of the TIT and specified skilled workers. Professor Kambayashi will give you further details on the wages. So as for the second point, I will talk about it later on. With regard to the wages in Japan, if you compare the Japanese workers and foreign workers, this is the distribution provided by the Ministry of Health. The red represent foreign workers, the wage and the blue represent Japanese workers' wage structure. The average hourly wage for foreign workers is 1,666 yen, and Japanese 2,265 yen. However, there are some foreign workers who earn more than 8,000 yen per hour. So it cannot be said that it can be said that there are some extreme examples of the foreign workers as well. So what causes wage gaps? One of the major factors explaining the gap is the age or the educational level, the human capital attributes, and also the service years, and also the employment arrangements are different between Japanese and foreign workers. If you compare the Japanese workers and foreign workers working at the same company, the difference is about 6.2%. So if you compare that against other countries, so this is from the prior literature. So in Japan, the difference is 4.6% within the same firm. And I think Japan is at the 4th rank, which is about the middle of the 9 Western countries that are shown here. In case of Japan, the visa or the residential status also affects the way the foreign workers work and the wages they can earn. According to our research, we divided foreign workers into 4 groups. And this is the trend of those foreign workers. Each group shows the upward trend. After the pandemic, the TIT and SSW increased quite rapidly. The TIT and SSW, in terms of the number of workers, is the biggest group. Within different foreign workers group, there are various differences, such as educational level. In case of the advanced workers, 70% graduated either university or graduate school. The TIT and SSW have only the second tier education, not tertiary education, the secondary education. So this is the difference in wage distribution by visa group. With regard to the high-skilled workers on the top right, you see a lot of overlap between Japanese and foreign workers. However, TIT and SSW bottom right, and also students, they are concentrated in about 1,000 to 1,500 yen range. So by visa status, there are different factors contributing to the wage gaps, and this is a slide related to that. You can see the plotting of a different group is different. So the factors affecting the wages are different from one foreign workers group to the other. This is the statistics by the Ministry of Finance. According to this survey, if you can see at the top left, this is the comparison with firms without foreign workers and with foreign workers. Here, the size of the business and the regions they operate are assumed to be the same, and then a regression analysis is conducted. So in terms of the businesses that employ foreign workers, it depends on the group of the workers. So there are businesses that only employ TIT and SSW, or businesses that only employ high-skilled workers. With regard to the TIT, SSW, the labor productivity wage per workers are significantly low. And if you look at advanced worker firms, they have a higher sales, and also tangible fixed assets are high as well, meaning that they are significantly more capital intense businesses. So by hiring foreign workers, what were the impacts on their revenues? So here, because of the restrictions of the data, we can only get the information of the business without only employee, TIT, and SSW. And there are two different set of results. In terms of sales and labor productivity, after hiring foreign workers, we couldn't observe the significant increase in sales and productivity. But as you can see in the top right, number of employees have increased. And also, as you can see on the bottom right, wage per workers, after 3 years, a significant reduction is observed compared to the firms not employing the foreign workers.
So this has not led to the productivity. However, the has been contributing to the workforce. And for the labor fee per capita, whether or not the burden on the working has been decreased or not, I would be mentioning this later on. So this is another data having another result, and this is from METI and has been launching the survey for the companies who are hiring TITs and SSWs. For here, we have been grouping 3 groups within the SSW recruitment. For the left bold bar, this is that only in-house trained TIT is accepted. The second bar is in-house TIT plus TITs that has come from other routes. And when I mention about other routes, this is about the TITers who has been completed their learnings in another company, or else they have been passing through a test, which is a hybrid type. That's a gray bar. And the third bar is the other routes. So in such a way, we have been categorizing 3 parts. And so far, the tendency is that only in-house trained TIT is the most dominant. However, just shown in the orange line, this only in-house trained TIT is gradually trending down. And how do you read this trend? When TITs are received, first of all, they come with a status with very little skill or have more near to no skills. Therefore, the companies are to train them gradually. And these people, when they are transferred to an TIT, they will be scouted or else giving them some incentives in order to work. And now we are understanding that many people are transcending, especially from the local area to the urban area. Let's say the urban areas are lacking essential workers, and that is happening currently today. And at that time, for the companies who are hiring TIT, how to understand the costs that the company has been spending on the TIT. And going forward, currently a new way of a system is starting currently. Therefore, we have to be thinking about this going forward. And right now, still using these 3 categories. This is about the support and the correlation of how the companies are supporting these TITers and the SSWs. So firms employing SSW from in-house TIT number 1 or number 2, if it's number 1 type or the number 2 hybrid type, they provide somewhat more support for Japanese language learning in daily life. That is understood. However, the learning Japanese language, this is going to be a challenge within the new training and employment system going forward. However, the companies, it is only under 30% who would like to be willing to spend the fees for the language study for the TITs. And this is from another same survey. And this is about the wage increase plotting versus the wages for the Japanese workers and the SSWs. And right-hand side, this is the promotion wage per year, and then the vertical line is the promotion wages per Japanese. And then on the diagonal line, this is the companies. And this diagonal line is around 40%, meaning that the Japanese wages and the promotion wage is same as the SSWs. And there are 20%. That was so on the right-hand side quadrant, this is 40% that has a higher wage per capita for the SSWs for the promotion. So you can understand that the wages increases are very much different, and it varies very much across firms. So right-hand side shows the higher wage increases. So that could be understood that in a glance that SSW is paid higher wages. However, we have to be thinking carefully. First of all, the wage increases for TIT and SSW reflect the institutional incentives. Therefore, it is not necessary that the company itself is bringing better wages to the TITs and SSWs. And as introduced, the wages for the TIT and SSW, it is mostly concentrated around the 1,000 yen, very low end. So currently, there's a possibility that it is affected by the increase of minimum wage that happened recently. However, it has not been confirmed. Therefore, we would like to leave it that this is a hypothetical understanding. But at any rate, within the Japanese labor market, the wage issue is an imminent issue. And companies that are hiring foreign workers, it is quite difficult that they are to be raising the wages for the workers. And this is a chart showing the redistribution rate of the labor. And just looking at this, the gray line is the SMEs and how the trend has been going on for the labor redistribution rate, and it is already trending around 80%. So meaning that the possibility of having higher wages is very low. And first of all, the companies that are employing foreign workers are receiving around 20,000 yen. And I just mentioned that the payment rate is low by the TIT. However, with TITs and SSWs, there's many portion that the companies has to pay for. Therefore, as a wage, it is difficult to raise by the company. So within that backdrop, it is quite a struggle for an SMEs to raise a payment. So it has to be a selection of the company who is going to be having a pay raise or not. And because of that, there are many variations, large variations across firms about the payment and wage increases. So this is the last survey and my summary. This is the questionnaire to the workers themselves, and we summarize this by the help of Toyota Foundation. And this is a survey result for the foreign workers and the Japanese workers. Left-hand side chart indicates the correlations with how the people are satisfied with their works or not. And we have been showing the items which had a very high correlations. The highest correlation was that the people are interested within the context of work, and they have high good payment, and then they can utilize their capability. And right-hand side is about what people are disturbed while working. The very first top one is that they are apart from their families and is isolated, and then they have a small amount of overtime hours, or else the payment is low, etc. So the image that we used to have is that it was about the financial area, stereotype area where the migrant workers are sending some wages over to their home countries. But then even with the foreign workers, they focus on the well-being or the career constructions. That was observed. So this is not just about the foreign workers, but then this is an issue that is apparently working for the whole working populations. And once the foreign workers are hired and employed at one company, a company is open to keep them employed. However, we wanted to look into the future, whether the companies are providing good careers in the futures. But unfortunately, we were not able to observe that. Within the middle part, the job rate or the occupation higher than the group leader. We just looked into the ratio of the populations hired, and even with the high-skilled people, it's only 7.4% of the share of the managers. So in the case of SSW and TITs, it was only a mere 0.2%, so almost near to none. Therefore, the promotions for a long term for the foreign workers in Japan are very scarce right now. That is something that we can say. But the regular, so all these are challenges faced at the regular employment in Japan as well. So in Japan, the wages are difficult to be improved, and then there's many discrepancies or differences among the workers. Therefore, for the foreign workers, they are not a member of regular employees. Therefore, the wages could be low, or else maybe it could be limited that they will be promoted. That is what we assume. And lastly, this is a conclusion and future issues. And I would like to just skip this. But going forward for future issues, in Japan, the data is gradually increasing that we can use. However, the quality-wise and the amount, we need more. Therefore, the evidence that we can trust, we would like to have data for us to be analyzing more. And the data and evidence, if we are insufficient or the quality is low, then we could be having some distortion or some bias for our results. Therefore, we need high-quality data and then a high survey and research, and then we would like to use it to the policy creation. So with that, I would like to close my reporting.
Thank you very much. So we move on to 10-minute discussion by Dr. Kondo from RIETI.
Okay. Thank you very much for introducing me, Professor Okubo. I'm Keisuke Kondo, Senior Fellow of RIETI and Associate Professor of Kobe University. Okay, yes. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I'm very glad to discuss Hashimoto-san's presentation. It was extremely interesting, and this paper provides an important policy implication. So before moving on to my comments, I would like to briefly summarize the point of Hashimoto-san's presentation. So first, what is a research question? So this study aims to uncover the wage gap between Japanese and foreign workers in the Japanese labor market. To answer this question, this study uses the most recent microdata from the basic survey on wage structure from the Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare. So using the microdata is highly important to answer this type of research question. And it also relies on newly conducted questionnaire survey by Ministry of Trade, Economy, Trade, and Industry. So what method is used in this study? The empirical analysis estimates wage equations with and without additional controls in order to examine how the estimated wage gap changes after accounting for observed worker and workplace characteristics. So now let me explain findings and contributions. So this study found no wage gap between Japanese and foreign workers. As you know, a large wage gap is observed at the aggregate level. However, once observed factors are controlled for, the aggregate wage gap between Japanese and foreign workers disappears. So this is important finding, and so the wage gap we observe in Japan is completely explained by observed factors. So there is no unexplained wage gap in Japanese labor market. So the second point is here. So a demand-driven immigration policy affects the wage distribution. So status of residence, 在留資格 in Japanese, largely determines foreign workers' occupations and educational profiles. So that's why Japan's policy on the acceptance of foreign workers has a direct effect on the aggregate wage distribution. And this study also provides key perspectives for the future labor market. So based on the questionnaire survey by Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, more foreign workers are prioritizing job content and career prospects, not just salary. So not only policy side, so government side, but also farm side is also important. So farms' responses to these changing preferences will also play an important role. So if farms want to hire foreign workers, more foreign workers, so farms need to understand preferences of foreign workers. So now, let me talk about my comments about Hashimoto-san's presentation. So my first comment is on the factors behind the wage gap. So this study decomposes the factors behind the wage gap. But in my view, the current wage equation approach focuses on the constant term difference in the wage gap between Japanese and foreign workers. So my interest is in the differences in the coefficient estimates of each variable in the wage equation. So I think this approach imposes the assumption that the returns to human capital and the human resource management related factors are identical across Japanese and foreign workers, I think. So let me say in different way. So do foreign workers face the same returns to education and wage tenure profiles as Japanese workers in Japanese labor market? So I think to answer this type of question, so bring the Oaxaca decomposition approach might be useful. And is it just I'd like to ask Hashimoto-san. So this bring the Oaxaca decomposition is applicable or not?
ということで、それが適用できるかどうかといった質問をしたいと思います。
So why? Let me explain why I'm asking this question. So this perspective is relevant for foreign workers who plan to reside in Japan for an extended period, since their long-term economic integration depends not only on initial wage levels, but also on subsequent wage growth. My second comment is about gender perspective in the wage distribution. The gender wage gap among foreign workers in the Japanese labor market also represents an important issue. But this point is not fully discussed in today's presentation. But I think this point should be discussed in the future research, I think. So how should we understand the gender wage gap among foreign workers in the Japanese labor market? Maybe this point is highly related with the first, so the second session by Professor Biarengo. So let me explain why I'm asking this question. So companies with 101 or more employees are required to disclose gender wage gap from last month, and actually large-sized firms have already disclosed gender wage gap based on the Act on Promotion of Wage Women's Active Engagements in Professional Life. So medium-sized firms which are likely to hire foreign workers need to disclose gender wage gap in the future. So that's why maybe this point is important. And this is one of my research agenda about employment of foreign workers. So, and just I would like to show some data, fact-finding evidence. So this is a list of status of residence. So there are 4 classifications based on the basic survey of on wage structure. So professional, specialist, social position, technical intern training, specified skilled workers. And the corresponding statuses of residence are as follows. So now this figure shows a histogram of monthly wages. So vertical axis indicates the fractions, so percentage of foreign workers. And the horizontal axis indicates monthly wages. So when we look at the foreign workers with the status of residence, professional specialist, a gender wage gap is visually unclear. By contrast, when we look at the foreign workers with the status of residence, social position, a gender wage gap is visually evident. Actually, this foreign workers with this status of residence have no restriction in the Japanese labor market. So this foreign workers with this status of residence can work like Japanese, but we observe gender wage gap. So what is the source of gender wage gap? I would like to know any idea, or if you have any preliminary result, I'd like to hear your findings. So now I would like to focus on the foreign workers with the status of residence, technical intern training, Jishu. In this case, a gender wage gap is visually unclear. By contrast, so when we look at foreign workers with status of residence, specified skilled workers, Jishu, which started in 2019, a gender wage gap is slightly observed. So what's happening now in the Japanese labor market? There is no gender wage gap in the case of technical intern training, but now in the new status of residence, we observe gender wage gap in the status of residence, specified skilled workers. So now let me summarize my comment. So I have 2 comments today. So my first comment is whether foreign workers face the same returns to education and wage tenure profile as Japanese workers or not. The second second question is why male foreign workers are more than female foreign workers in Japan, even within certain statuses of residence. So if you have any idea, I'd like to hear them. So anyway, I would like to emphasize that Hashimoto-san's research is very important and provides important, Hashimoto-san's research makes a great contribution to evidence policy making. So thank you very much. That's all.
So thank you very much. So Hashimoto-san, could you respond?
ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much. Dr. Kondo, thank you for your comments. I would like to briefly respond to your comments. With regard to the analysis of women, we have a research project which has been launched. As you written here, the visa status are relevant. However, how to explain the difference between Japanese workers and foreign workers are very difficult because it's like fitting all the different puzzle pieces. So we are still working on it. Thank you. I think we are running out of time. There's one question from the floor. SMEs, the work share is higher than the major companies because they are more labor intensive. With regard to the margin of wage increase of the SMEs, their sales and profitability are relatively low compared against major companies. And I think that's quite important. Thank you very much for that comment. The cause and effect are something we are looking at. The sales and profitability may be relevant. So sales and profitability is low amongst the SMEs, and then labor share are high amongst the SMEs. And I think they do not contradict to each other.